Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Syndicast. We're going to do what we used to do. We got a new shooter on. Well, he's not new. He's been around for a little bit, and he's got about 1,000 followers on Instagram, and we're going to talk about the business of being an amateur. All right, everybody. Hey, this is Mark. Welcome back to the program. We've got Kevin Harrington on the show today, and before we dive into that, just wanted to ask you to do a couple things for us. So really, the way that these calls, especially this type of podcast, show up is if you go onto our website, HawkeyeSyndicate.com/first1000, and there you can download a document on how to get to your first 1,000 followers. And if you have 1,000 followers and you want to do one of these 1-hour tune-ups with me that we're going to be doing here with Kevin, then you'd go to the same thing. You go to the influence page and you go to HawkeyeSyndicate.com/influencer, and you fill out the form there. So I got all your info and I can kind of look it over and we'll schedule a call. And then, of course, if you are a small company or you're in the firearm space or even some of the biohacking stuff we're doing now, you can go to HawkeyeSyndicate.com/join the syndicate and let us know about your business. And we will schedule a 1-hour conversation where we take a complete look at your business from the outside in and give you some actionable items, whether you end up working with us, you want to compare us to another marketing firm, or whether you want to do it yourself. You'll have a good 6-month plan after that. All right, so without further ado, welcome to the program, Kevin Harrington.
Hey, thank you, Mark.
Hey, welcome, man. So you spent the whole day on the range with the Minnesota State Sectional, yeah?
Yes, I did.
Gosh.
Shot 11 stages today.
Now, you're a three-gunner at heart, but do you use USPSA for like a cross training, or do you use it for a primary game? Like, what are you doing with over there today?
For the most part, I use it as cross training. I started by shooting three-gun.
Okay.
And I actually started shooting some USPSA just to help my pistol game.
Yeah, well, you've reached that level where the pistol game's starting to really matter, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I just finally signed up to be a member for USPSA just a couple months ago.
Yeah,
so.
I've given them $40 a year since I can remember, just because it's like anyone who's advocating for the Second Amendment deserves $40 a year from me.
Yep, exactly.
And doing it with some level of grace, anyway. What division are you shooting?
I've been shooting limited minor, like a true three-gunner.
Yeah.
And I've been using my Weber hooded holster.
Really?
So
you're drawing with the holster and with the hood and everything.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man. Now, I will say for those out there, this is just a plug for Weber. Get the USPSA and the three-gun holster if you're going to buy it, because a lot of good reasons, but one of them is if you find yourself at a USPSA match.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
That's great. Well, cool. Well, let's get into that a little bit more. But first of all, tell me a little bit about you. Like, we've been friends for a while, but I don't know where you grew up, like what you've done, your work life. Like, just give us the, 50,000-foot elevator pitch.
Yeah. I'm a mechanic for a living, just working and turning wrenches. I've been pretty much doing that since I was 16. I grew up out in the west suburbs of Minneapolis, out in Chanhassen, and then went to college for automotive, and then lived in Denver for 4 or 5 years working at a dealership out there. And then I just moved back to Minneapolis and been living here again since like 2012, working on cars.
Cool. Have you always been into guns, or?
No, actually, I'm the only person in my family into guns.
Really?
I'm the only gun owner in my family.
How old were you when you got your first firearm?
My first gun I bought when I was 24. Bought a Sig P226.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That beats my first one, the Sig P239, which is pretty much a useless duck.
Yep.
Amazing.
Yep.
And if it's all right to ask, how old are you now?
I'm 29.
Wow. Okay. You and I have similar. I mean, I got you by a decade. Well, I've got you by several decades, but I started in my late 30s into guns. What had you decide, like, you're 24 years old, you're wandering down the street, getting ready to wrench on a car, and you're like, I think I'm going to buy a firearm.
I had a couple of buddies that had some guns, and we would go to like local indoor ranges and stuff, and just, point shoot. Yeah. And then I had a couple of buddies that were super into hunting, so I ended up, buying my first pistol and, going to the range. And then I bought a shotgun, and then I started doing some sporting clays and trap, just kind of, nonchalant with a couple of buddies on weekends. And then a couple of buddies one time were just like, hey, have you ever heard of this three-gun game? And they had never been to matches. We just decided that we would try and do it, and we went up to their property up north, and we set up like our own little three-gun thing based off of YouTube videos. on their property. And then like 2 weeks later, the three of us that were super into it found the MN3 gun group and found their first match for the 2017 out at Scapsa, the one that was, like 3 degrees.
Yeah.
And I think you were one of the first people I saw there.
It's very possible.
And we were setting up stages and freezing our butts off.
Yep.
And we were hooked.
Yeah.
And I think you remember my buddy Cam.
Yep, totally.
Milo, him and I went, for a whole summer shooting.
Yeah.
And I was hooked.
Yeah.
So I just started buying tons of gear, and then basically Cam was using all of my gear, and we were just shooting together.
Yeah, you got the sickness hard, and then he kind of hung in there for a little bit, and then I haven't seen him this season yet.
No, he didn't really shoot much last summer either.
No,
it was just that 2017 summer.
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy. I don't know. He's got that. Well, he came out last year a little bit because he brought Steph with him. I mean,
yep.
You notice when there's like any pretty girl wearing a gun, you're all like, everyone's like, oh, who's that?
Yep.
All right. Well,
yeah, he shot a couple matches last year, and he just didn't have the time and everything for it.
Yeah, no, I got it. I mean, there's a lot of barriers to entry in the sport, so and one is time for sure. I was actually looking for this document we were talking. According, I don't know if I've ever shared this with you, but according to the NSSF, they do a big, massive report every year on like the evolving shooting sports, the gun industry, blah blah blah, right? And they did like I can't remember the years, but I wanted to look at it. But so let's just say in the last 10 years versus the 10 years prior. So 20 years ago, if you were a new target shooter, and they define target shooting as like any of the target sports, the action shooting, that whole world.
Yep, that whole umbrella.
Yeah, the whole umbrella, non-hunting, non-competition really, but just like you're into the shooting thing, right? That you were like 80% had, hunted as a kid, 80% were suburban or rural, whatever, like 80% were, like middle income or lower income, you get the idea, right? Yep. And then if you take that against the last 10 years, 80% never hunted as a kid, never owned a gun as a kid before 18. Yep. 80% either live in urban or suburban areas. 80%, like there was a whole total demographic shift around women and minorities and everything. And it's like this whole new world of 20 and 30 somethings who just bought a gun like well after 18 and said, I'm going to get into this. It looks like a blast. And I certainly count myself in one of those. I was a little later in my life when I did that, but I totally get it. And it's cool to see all these people that have showed up in the sport that don't have any of that background.
Oh yeah.
So were you an athlete as a kid, or I mean, what made you go like, I think I want to compete in this?
Yeah, I played hockey like my whole life, all the way through high school.
Got it.
A little bit of football and baseball, but I really stuck with hockey.
I got it.
So I loved it. Obviously, shooting isn't exactly a team sport like that, but at the same time, our community kind of is. Mm-hmm. It is almost like a team sport, but
yep. Well, you know what I always say, it's like the squad is your team, and then it's your job to kick your squad's ass and get right back on the team, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, totally. Yep. Okay, good. So you went to a Scapsa match, you're hooked, and then you spent 18 kind of honing yourself. I mean, that's where I saw you start to like take it seriously. It looks like you were practicing. You're certainly showing up like almost every Wednesday night and all the weekend matches. And then this year you're reliably in the top 5 guys on Wednesdays, in a short format match. Where are you generally ending up in the MN3 gun group matches these days?
Not as well as I'd like to be, but
welcome to the club.
I would say I'm somewhere in the top 30%, like consistently.
So you're a 70% shooter on the weekend. And then how are you doing at majors?
It depends on the format, I guess, sometimes. But like Nordic, I just placed, I think it was 28th in TAC Ops, which awesome. I'm happy with that one.
Yeah.
I did fairly decent out at Shooter Source. Yep. I don't remember exactly where I placed right now.
Yeah.
But it was top 60%. I know that. I don't know if I broke 70%.
Okay, cool. Well, good. Well, so you're, and then you're a 60 to 70% shooter at majors. I'm just setting the stage because I mean, like, look, the fact is way more people like you or aspiring to be you than there are people like, pick your top shooter out there, right? And so this isn't a dinger at all. I mean, after like 7 or some years, 8 years, I have a reliability at like, top 3 at Wednesdays, top 10 on the weekends, and maybe, I used to be 80% at a major, right? And and I was pretty reliable for that. These days I'm not so reliable. I seem like I'm shooting better right now than I've shot in a long time, though. I'm super smooth right now, but like generally speaking, I'm not shooting like I used to either. I'm way more for the love of the sport these days than I am for the the trophy hunting.
So, yeah, for sure.
Really cool.
I absolutely love the sport.
Yep.
But what's really fun too is I'm in that kind of skill level right now where no matter where I go around the country, no matter what match I'm shooting, there's a fairly decent sized group of guys that are all just like, oh, how are you shooting today? How are you doing? And people kind of comparing themselves to each other. So there's always like, I thought I had you on this match. And,
So as you started emerging from the middle of the pack, because arguably you're edging if you're not firmly in the top third at this point, right? On a regular basis, certainly locally. How did you manage that? Like, what was your strategy? Were you going after the top guy, or were you picking a rabbit a little closer in the field? What was your kind of strategy for that?
I definitely was looking to the top shooters to try and learn from, but I was picking people closer to me to try and beat them in the next match, or try and edge them out.
That's an awesome strategy.
Yeah. You just kind of pick out a pecking order and kind of move around and learn as much as you can. And really, like you saw last summer, just shoot as much as I could.
Yeah, totally. Do you ever tell the person who you're gunning for?
Sometimes. I think there's been a couple of guys, but usually I just kind of keep it to myself. I'm not like, I never go and rub anything in anybody's face when I beat them either.
No,
so.
I don't mean that. I'm just mean like, like, let's just say, I don't know, whatever. There's, John Smith is always beating you by 2 or 3 places, and you spend a whole summer gunning for John Smith, and then you're reliably beating him. I've never told anybody before or after I've been gunning after him, but I mean, just about everybody you would imagine in our little community has at one time or another been in my sights.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Chasing him around.
Yeah.
Super fun. So at what point did you start, obviously this is a business podcast, but I wanted to lay some groundwork. You're shooting, every Wednesday, which is like 20 some Wednesdays a summer. You're doing some MDing for us this year. You are shooting pretty much all the weekend matches, which is 6 or 7 events with the MN3 gun group, who puts on a very tough match. And then how many majors are you going to make it to this year?
So I've already shot Missouri, Shooter Source, Trigun. So I've already shot at least 3 majors this year, and I've got another 4 or 5 coming up.
Really? What's on your calendar?
I leave in like 3 days to go drive out to the Wyoming Governor's match.
Cool.
Come back. I have a weekend off. I go to the Pro-Am after that.
Nice.
And then the very next following weekend is the local, the Jeff Kirkwood Memorial match, which isn't exactly major, but it's a full weekend match.
Yeah, if you're local and you're listening to this and you have never done a major, JKM is probably the lowest barrier to entry to a major event you can find, and it's just a damn good time. You should be registered.
I was going to say, yeah, one of the most fun matches.
Yeah, there's like 16 slots available, so get your butt on there. I think I might have to actually register still. I'll have to look at that. Okay, cool. And then anything after that?
I think I have like another weekend off, and I'm going to the finale match over at Colfax, which is because it's a nice 2-hour drive away. Yeah. So it's like their little mini major. They're kind of this year it sounds like they're kind of going after the JKM format. They're doing a match on the first day and a shoot-off second day.
Cool.
And then the very following weekend is the new Wisconsin 3-gun championship presented by Vortex.
Yes.
So that'll be fun. And then the very following weekend after that, I'm going to the Mission 22 match out in Illinois.
Cool.
Which I attended last year, so that should be a fun one since they've built up their range even more since last year.
Yeah.
So three weekends in a row of big matches. Cool. And then I think the next weekend right after that is a MN3 gun group club match.
Yes.
So
right on. Your schedule is awesome. Those are all great matches. I really enjoyed Pro-Am the year I went. I haven't been back because it's a hell of a drive for a more traditional format match. And these days I find myself super into the extreme physical matches if I'm going to travel. Like Vortex Shooter Source for me is like the ideal mix of shooting and physical activity. It's like ideal, right? The old Ironman match was actually the ideal, but that's no longer around. And then I just got registered into the next major event I'm doing. I'm going to put off all majors for the rest of the season. I'll be at Kirkwald. I might go out to that with that Winnequa match, but I just registered for the Tactical Games in November.
Is that the one that's down in Florida?
That one I think is in Mississippi, if I remember correctly. It's one of those.
Is it the one that Sanchez has been bugging people about?
Yeah, he's going to that one. Yeah, and that was one of the, he talked me. It was Florida. All right, he talked me into it. Well, he didn't talk me into it. He told me about it, and I'm already was training for something else, and I'm like, all I have to do is shift to a more endurance-based workout program, and so I started today with that. I ran with a plate carrier for the first time today. It was a great time, but that's something you'll be seeing a lot in my social media coming up, is preparing for that stupid thing.
He's trying to convince me to go to that one. I don't know if I'm ready for it this year, but I think that's something I'm definitely going to work towards too. Get out to a Tactical Games match.
There's like 4 of them a year or 5 of them a year. I mean, they look like a blast, and it's some serious shooting. It's 300 rounds of pistol, 300 rounds of rifle. It's no joke.
Oh yeah. And a lot of movement, a lot more movement than we're used to in 3-gun.
Well, they call the stages battles, and each battle could be 20 or 30 minutes long. So you are literally working and shooting for like 20 continuous minutes.
Oh yeah, and doing obstacles and running a 3K,
all of it. Yeah, I did 4K today with 5 pounds on. I got to work up that that load, but to 15. But it was like, I'm in trouble. I got some work to do. Cool. Well, let's then, this is a business podcast, but I like to have a little background of relatedness for people so they kind of get who you are. I think you're at like that kind of perfect time to start talking about like, do you want to do more on the business side of things? Right. So when did you pick up the mantle of like, hey, maybe I'm going to add a little business to my fun?
It actually kind of started that first summer towards the end of the year. I think I shot every Wednesday night that year.
Yeah.
And the guys and gal from Obsidian Arms, the Wade Wilson family there, basically shot with us all the time. And I would always talk to them about rifles and, all the stuff we were working on. And I'd test fire some of their guns. And towards the end of the year, they're kind of like, well, maybe into next year you start shooting one of our rifles. And it was just kind of a social build into kind of becoming a brand ambassador for them.
Yeah.
/ sponsored shooter. And so that first year or the next year, they ordered me a jersey that was just, Obsidian Arms, and I shot their rifle, and I'm still shooting that same rifle, and it's been awesome.
Yeah. And for those of you who don't know, a couple things about Obsidian Arms. One is they're a client of the Syndicate. We've been working with them for years. They're like family at this point. It's crazy.
Oh yeah.
And then, and I shoot their rifle. I think they have a remarkable product, and there's some really great stuff coming from them. And for those of you who are into Sig Sauer, they have some of the coolest base pad setups for Sig Sauer I've ever seen, plus AR toolkits, other stuff like that. And actually, we are in conversation with them right now. I think we're far enough along, I'm okay mentioning it. They're going to do a team rifle for Hawkeye Ordnance. And we're going to do a limited run of them. And that's likely the gun that I'll be shooting for the Tactical Games, 14.5-inch pinned and welded, everything you need, nothing you don't.
Perfect.
Yeah, looking forward to that. So that's them. So you start shooting with those guys and kind of getting a taste for, their expectations aren't exactly high, which is a good first, first sponsorship, right?
Right. And they love, just feedback, and I bring my rifle into their shop all the time, and they kind of look at it and see how it's wearing and tearing and what's going on with it.
Yep.
And it's been an awesome relationship.
Really cool. Good. So you fall into that one. Next thing you know, you're wearing a jersey, and then you start, I know you've made some other phone calls, some other people you're working with. Who all's on your roster right now?
I currently shoot for Obsidian, and then Hyperfire, Hawkeye, Atlas Gunworks, and Vortex Optics.
Oh, nice mix.
Yeah. So, it's cool. It's like Hyperfire kind of came as I was ordering my jersey with Obsidian that last winter.
Yeah.
And basically became friends with all those guys at that shop. And Dustin, who formerly of Hyperfire, is now one of my really good friends. So that one was kind of like, hey, here's some product, put our logo on your jersey too. And that never involved phone calls or emails. It's just relationships built on the range.
Yep.
And that's really how you and Blair came and talked to me too, was on the range in person.
Yep.
The only one that involved emails was Atlas, talking with them. And I've never, to be honest, I've never received any free product from Atlas.
Yeah.
I bought one of their pistols from you at Arms and Arms.
Yep.
And paid full price for it.
Yeah.
And I stand behind that product and I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
That pistol shoots lights out and helped me become a better pistol shooter and made me love shooting pistol more. And that's why like we talked about at the beginning here, why I started getting into USPSA. Like, well, I want to shoot this more. Why not?
For sure. Well,
so
and Atlas has a pretty good, they have a multiple levels of sponsorship that they've, there's like literally the team people, which are mostly local. And then they've got their their top brand ambassadors, which are effectively paid positions. And then they've got this open opportunity for people to make commissions and to pay, get deals on guns. And the way you get that is be cool.
Yep, exactly.
They're not, that whole thing that they designed is very similar to how Hawkeye looks at it, which is essentially like, we just want people, we've always been the blue collar gunsmiths, right? We sell accessibility for a living. And, for us, you were highly accessible. You were somebody on the range. You had you always are loaning your equipment, helping out. And that's kind of where you and I started talking about doing some match directing.
Yeah.
So I haven't even had a chance to check in with you on that this summer. How are you enjoying that?
I'm loving it. I'm loving the ability to start getting more into the community and help giving back and design stages, help put stuff up Wednesday nights and make sure that people are having fun on Wednesdays,
Yeah, for sure. Is that affected you as a shooter at all, or the way you look at stages now?
A little bit. I break down stages a little bit different than I did before. I guess I don't know where I was going with that, but it's helped me break down stages in a different way, kind of from a different aspect, from the back end of it, behind the stage type of, like, why was this place there? Oh, I know why that was placed there.
The why.
Exactly.
The why of the equation. Yeah. Really cool.
Yep.
Well, that's cool. Well, look, let's jump into some of the business of this so that we can leave people with something that hopefully helps them out. So I did my usual dive and I came up with Kevin Harrington -competitive shooter on Facebook.
Yep.
And at kharrington_3gun on Instagram.
Yep.
Cool. And you're obviously heavily weighted on your Instagram page.
Yeah, that's like last summer I put a lot of work into building an Instagram page.
Really great.
And I started putting out content, some match videos, some, info and pictures on gear that I've been coming into. As we've all learned, you basically learn that the first things you bought are junk.
Right.
And it wasn't the right choice and you did waste some money.
Yeah.
But that's one of the reasons why I decided to early on get into a custom 2011, because I knew that the M&P I started with was not where I wanted to be.
Yeah.
And it wasn't doing it for me.
Well, good. Let's just do this. Let's blow through I'm going to just flip through your Facebook real quick. So we'll get over to Instagram here in a second, because that's where you're having your most success. So you've got an athlete page, which, has 220 some people following this, 225, something like that. And it just from the outside, the appearance is that you are doing a lot of cross posting off of your Instagram page.
Yep. That's basically how I started forming that one. And I have not given it the effort and energy that I should. Yeah,
totally. Well, and then, so just a couple of things that you could really dial in really quick that would be helpful. And number one is get in there and blow out your about page, right? Spend some time actually telling people, more than you've got like 2 sentences right now, and then go to my Instagram, right? So I would encourage you to get in there and write a more comprehensive bio, something that gives people more meat to chew on about who you are. You could also, of course, link to your sponsors there. and anything else that you want to send people to, like, hey, this is a great resource for learning or blah, blah, blah. And really, give somebody something to check out, because they will go check out that page, especially with athlete pages, right?
Oh yeah.
They're going to meet you at the range. And, hell, you could probably, I'll send you the Rev transcript from the first 10 minutes of this conversation. You could probably just clean that up and, throw it in there. That would work. But, anytime you're doing anything, that's, higher level content, like a podcast or a video or what have you, it would be a great opportunity to like put links in there to go check this out. Kind of always have fresh stuff in there. And then the other thing that's just a big kind of, I don't want to call it a no, but even though Facebook and Instagram are owned by the same people, Facebook does not favor the sharing across the platform. So, and a couple things about that, for example, Facebook doesn't really use hashtags. It uses them. You can search hashtags, but it's not part of the sort of ecosystem. It doesn't bring any water really in and out of your house. And the tags you're using are not, Facebook tags. You're not even getting the credit for like tagging Nordic Vortex Trigun, for example.
Yep.
So the easiest thing to do, the quickest thing to do here is when you do the cross post, is just like the next thing you do is pop over on Facebook and
edit that
sucker so it's clean.
Yep.
You've got all the people, because look, you got some of the best sponsors I could imagine having. But you also, with Atlas, you've got to, you only get to eat what you kill. So you want to be driving traffic there. And I've got lots and lots of numbers on this, and effectively, even on a 10-to-1 mix that you're on right here, a little less than, but like 10 to half, but on a 10-to-1 mix of followers, I would imagine that you'd still be generating something like 70 to 80% of business for companies off of Facebook.
Okay.
So I've got, plenty of companies that have, the well over the 10,000. So we're able to link and do all that stuff on Instagram. And when we post, content specifically made for Facebook and Instagram of roughly the same vein. And, when we pull our numbers at the end of the month, something like 95% of the actual trackable transactions come from Facebook. So while Instagram makes us feel really good, right,
yep,
it is not necessarily a great vehicle for commerce. And there's going to be plenty of people who are going to argue that with me, and I'm all good with that. And I totally have sold stuff on Instagram, and you're right. It's a good branding tool, but as it relates to sales, which is the only thing that I could give you credit for if I pulled the numbers at Atlas, Facebook remains king.
Oh yeah.
So
it's way easier for a consumer to kind of surf through those web pages via Facebook than it is Instagram.
Correct. And with Facebook, the problem with Facebook is that there's a pretty solid throttle on what it's going to get out, right? And since you're not using a personal page, you're using an athlete page, you're kind of stuck in third gear, right? So the way to get out of that is do the things that Facebook really wants. Number one is video. It's number one. Right. And it's video because they want to beat YouTube, because YouTube wouldn't sell to them. And that's a simple version of the truth, but that's just good enough. Right. So, doing as much video as you possibly could on Facebook. And so maybe you're only doing 1 or 2 posts a week on Facebook, but if they're high quality, that's what Facebook really favors. So I would encourage you to, if you're doing 7 posts a week on Instagram, do 5 on Instagram and spend an extra half an hour on 2 posts and put them on Facebook.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good idea.
It'll make a really big difference. And the other thing is with Facebook is without having to have any third-party software, you can do scheduling. So you can go to at the top of your page when you're logged in, you'll see a section called Insights. So go to your Insights and look and see when most people are engaged with your content. And then schedule your 2, evergreen posts a week on the days and times that have the highest likelihood of getting seen, and then use the highest likelihood content to get seen. And you'll see a huge difference in your Facebook page.
Okay.
Cool. All right. Let's talk Instagram.
Instagram? The cool one, the fun one that everybody loves.
Yeah, Instagram is like, it's so damn fun. I mean, I love it. I mean, I really do. So I mean, a lot of people hear me slagging on it from a business standpoint. And that isn't really entirely fair. It has a remarkable amount of branding, or it's very engaging from a culture standpoint, right? So I'm not slagging Instagram. All I'm pointing out is that if you want to get trackable income, which is what's really required of you as a sponsored shooter, then Facebook is a much easier tool for that. And there's a lot of things you can do there. You can get a little trackable pixel that Facebook provides for free that you can track to see if they went all the way over to the page, blah, blah. You can actually get some really good data if you got, Curious George about it. Instagram, on the other hand, doesn't really make anything easy in the world of tracking. But they do have a lot of like eyeballs on it. And because you're not throttled, you feel like you're getting a lot more bang for your buck, right? Okay. So couple things, your handle's fine. The only thing I would look at with the handle is K Harrington _3 gun easy to transmit to somebody in a loud and disruptive environment?
Probably not.
Probably not, right? And
I don't have a short name.
I got it. So you might want to look at you might want to look at that, right? A little bit of branding wouldn't be a terrible idea here, right? Having 3 gun in there is excellent. Harrington 3 gun or something like that might work, or K Harry 3 gun. I don't know. I mean, you have to look at it, right, to see if you can find something that you dig that's available. But it would be a good exercise to look just to find something that's like, well, I always said when we were naming bands back in the day when I was touring with bands, is like, if you couldn't convey it in one yelling across a loud bar, your band name sucked. You might have the coolest, most ethereal band name ever, but if like nobody can remember it, you're screwed. And this is literally currently your business card.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, if you had a website or you had some other things, and I'm not advocating doing that. I'm just saying if you had all those things, then maybe you do something different. But inside the world of that you're currently playing in, your business card is your Instagram page. So then you got a short little product of Minnesota amateur sponsored 3 gun shooter that's not pro. I love that. You got a little more room for text in here, and you have done some tags and some hashtags. So one thing you might want to consider with this is it's a little easier to do like offline and then dump it in using like a text tab or something like that. But you could write, like if you look at, go look around at some of your favorite companies, like if you go to Hyperfire, for example, and emulate some of the things that they're doing that are sort of like best practices. Hang on a second, Hyperfire. They've got 2. I don't know if it's even them. If we go to Hyperfire, High Performance Firearms, right? So they have a short bio, short link. What they've really done a great job of is really blowing out all of their little My Story subsets on their page. So they have one, like they're going to TriggerCon right now, and they're at Dallas, the new trailer, things like that. So you could do one on, gear, one on like stuff you do when you're not shooting, whatever, one on food, one on fitness, blah, blah, blah. But you get the idea. You can do a bunch of stuff. I'm trying to think of a good one. Like I like, that Sean Go Boom. Do you know him?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So he's in our world, he's probably as good an Instagrammer as we've got. And that's Sean Burrows out of Utah, sean.go.boom. And what he's got is just a series of tags for all of his sponsors with a little icon before each one of them. Just kind of making it fun. And then that's all very Instagrammy, also very searchable. Hashtags are searchable here as well. And then he's got a YouTube page, that's his main link, which is probably a video of what he's done most recently, which was Rhino Metalworks, right? So he's always swapping his link with whatever the most current cool thing he's up to. So if you were
his latest and greatest video.
Yeah. Like, so if you were spending, and there's a couple cool things you can do that. I don't have the name in front of me, but there's a company that, for a few bucks a month will host like a link page for you. And it feels a little like a website. And then when people click to it, you can have different buttons on there for different things you're up to. And that can all be coded with trackable links so that, if they go to Atlas, you can track that your Instagram page sent, 20 people last month to Atlas. So if at the end of the year, they're like, well, you only had 2 sales, and you're like, yeah, but if I pull up my stats on my Instagram page, I can track for you that 300 people clicked the button. And at Atlas, our visit rate is it's just short of $5 a person. So in theory, you generated $1,500 worth of income for them. Now, you can't prove that, so you wouldn't want to get paid on that necessarily. But if you were on the fence for whether you could stick around with a sponsor or something, that would be a very powerful tool to have.
Yeah.
And you can search like Instagram landing page, I think is you'll find a few of those companies out there. But people like that. And I would really, kind of spend a little time again, just giving people a better sense of who you are when they land on your page. And then we talked about blowing out all the My Story stuff. And I can't look at your My Stories right now other than the most recent one. But generally speaking, you do a good job with like kind of documenting what you're up to at the match.
Yep.
So then we look at, you've got 914 followers. You've done 504 posts. And you've got 2,222 people that you're following. So your ratio is a little off on following for followers. You might want to skinny that down so it's closer to 1-to-1, unless there are 2,200 people who you really want to see their Instagram page.
Probably not.
Probably
I've thought about skinning that down before.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, this is one of those ones that I have no proof of this whatsoever. But I've just been told enough times that you don't want to, if you're following a bazillion people, a 10-to-1, something like that, you're not that bad right now, then it's like you're a follower, not a leader. It's just visually is kind of weird.
Yep.
But the one metric we can talk about, which will make a big difference, is you want to look at your posts per followers. So you've posted 500 times to garner roughly 1,000 followers, right?
Yep.
So you're gaining about 2 followers per post. And that's the number that's low. That's the number I'd be working on. And the reason for that is you are working really hard for your money right now. So then we want to go in and look. So if we look at like your last 3 posts, you had one of the 2 rifles. That's what your PCC and your AR-15. And you head in here, got this PCC finished up and matched. It's set up to my 3-gun rifle, sighted in with the Razor UH1, hashtag Huey, took it to USPSA match, it's now dialed in, and I have even more reasons to shoot matches. Time to go, get classified in PCC, I guess. So it's a really decent post. And then your hashtags are a 3-gun, 3-gunner, USPSA. I mean, decent hashtags, and you tagged a handful of companies. And then you had 3 people who commented, which isn't, not terrible. But I would look here that in the world of comments and likes, you didn't ask anybody a question or do anything to actually inspire comments, right?
Yep.
Nor did you respond to any of the comments that were made. So those are 2 real quick things is like, wait, maybe you did. No, you did. My bad. They were hidden. So you did respond to everybody. My bad. Except for Burger Cody. He said, looks good. And you're like, fuck you, Burger. But this is just one of those things where like, the quality of the imagery on the carpet is a little weak for Instagram. Instagram favors really high, fanutin imagery, right?
Yep.
And there was no real call to action inside of the text. Not really a problem. It's just that the text was long enough that people only read, got this PCC finished up and matched it set up to ... probably. So they were just kind of, you really got to, if you're going to do long form text, you got to pound them right away with a reason to hit the, read more and get them engaged. So you just kind of want to think about like, and a good thing to do is to just find somebody who you really dig and just rip them off for a while, play with their stuff and see how it works. Not directly, but like, oh, they're always asking questions or they're always putting something out that's funny or they hit you with a one-liner and then follow up with some good ideas or whatever.
Right.
And just
drawing people into the conversation, into the content.
Correct. And again, you just want to remember that this is a conversation. It's social, right? Yep. The next one is looks like the new TACOM upper you got for PCC.
Yep.
Are you getting that delayed or that short stroke bolt carrier? Have you seen that thing?
Yeah. So that is the upper that went into that PCC from the previous post we just talked about.
Okay. Cool.
That was from the Nordic Components Vortex Optics Trigun.
Oh, cool. Right on. Nice win. So huge shout out to TACOM and Luth AR for supporting the Vortec North 6 Trident. That's good. This was a good one because it was just straight up doing what you said you'd do, which is you won something off the table, you gave them their due, right? And so that's all good. So then you went on to talk more about yourself, basically. Got this complete, what you're going to do with it, right? So it might have been cool here to be like, something like, please go and follow TACOM 3G and Luth AR. It's companies like this that support the Nordic Vortex Trigun and other major matches that make this game worth it. Read more to find out what I'm doing with it. Something like that. So people, get a chance, or even whatever, sound off. If you love TACOM as much as I do, thanks so much for supporting that, blah, blah, blah. Right. So you got 64 likes for that. So that's a 0.6. No. So it's a 6.4% return on likes. And you had 2 comments. You replied to both. Way to go. So that's a 0.2% comment. So there's some disconnect between you and your audience with what you're up to, because there's nothing wrong with your posts. It's just they're not connecting with people. So again, it would be one of those things where maybe you spend a little more time on the content, because then you get into the next 3, and you had your belt, and it's a good sign of progress when you have to cut 3+ inches off your belt, right? So this is a good one, because now you've let us into your world, right? You're dealing with weight loss, which, by the way, you've done an awesome job.
Thank you.
Yeah. And and you had to show off something, and so this was a very a vulnerable post, right? And it shows up. You had 80 likes. You had an 8% like rate, and then you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 comments, plus several that turned into 2 to 5 comment strings. I mean, that's work done well, right? And it was actually a decent looking picture, And then there's you dumping into the box, 82 likes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 replies with, so you see how these numbers are really sort of showing up, right? And some of it, I think, is just the quality of the imagery from these 3. You got another one here from when you were shooting off the tank trap, or you were with the guy shooting off the tank trap, maybe? Looks like you bet over there.
That's our buddy Chad.
Yeah, cool. Oh, so that's Chad Swartout, right? So, this was, again, this is only 64 likes, but a lot of comments, right? So if we just kind of flip through here and you start looking and maybe spend an hour on a Sunday or whatever, and look through the content that's hitting more of an 8 to 10 versus a 5 to 6% range of likes, and a 1% or a 2% comments versus the sub 1%. And it's not like you want to I'm not trying to turn you into a robot. I just mean, you could be doing a lot for yourself here and posting less and getting the same result, or posting the same amount and getting more.
Yep.
And then the only other thing on your page that I got to tell you is you're very, very one-sided and very one-faceted. It's just shooting. Now.
Yep.
I've made this comment to a lot of people, and I get both sides of the story, but one thing you could do is, if anything else you're into that you're doing regularly that isn't totally obtuse, meaning it's not like a complete left turn out of the shooting sports, might be worth playing around with. So, a good example of this is Josh Tarrant. I told him the same thing. This is before he was anywhere near 10,000. I think he was in the 5s or 6s. He's having some successful runs. And I said, you're just really one-dimensional, And so he started putting some Jeep stuff in there. Now, if there's 5,000 3-gunners and 10% of them are into Jeeps, that's 500, right? If there's 5 million people into Jeeps and 1% are into 3-gun, it's 5,000. Yeah. So, and I when I put out one on podcasting, sometimes I'll do all the hashtags for podcasting, and I'll have 50 people follow me, most of which are looking to solicit me for business, right? And then the next day I'll post me blowing something up at the range, and I'll lose 35 of them. So you'll see that doesn't always like cross over completely. But if you have something else in your life that's like, like your fitness thing right now, right? That's a big one, and you see a lot of it out there. So this might not be the best thing to do, for example. But if you were like me right now, I'm getting ready for the tactical games. It's an excellent crossover, right? So I'm going to just like really use the My Story to do that. The occasional post in the Instagram page, but I'll use My Story really heavily for that because it's kind of disposable, and I don't know how interested people are in the workouts, but I will tell you this: I tried to do the tactical athlete on Ordnance maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and after a year of like religiously doing it, I gave up. And about a month later, I ran into Dawn Westberg, Ron Westberg's wife. And I'm like, Dawn, you look amazing. And she's like, yeah, I followed all your workouts. And then I found my own thing. Now I'm doing, I think it was like jiu-jitsu or some shit, or kickboxing or something like that. But really that's what got me started. And I was like, yeah, that was a year's worth of work, but one human being, changed the way they look and feel. It's totally worth it.
Yep.
So, dig in on that and just see if there's anything there you're interested in sharing in your life. I mean, there's other things that just are obvious, like dogs and, trucks, and I don't know if you're into mudding, I don't know. I'd have to dig through here and see what your other stuff is. I see some fishing in here. Certainly a solid crossover. But, poke around in your life a little bit and maybe feel free on a 1 in 10 basis versus the 1 in 100 you're on right now to add some color. And I really highly recommend using your My Story for that. Like if you put some of that content into your My Story and ask people to comment, and if it's just crickets, or you can see they're bailing on your page the instant that comes up, then probably not underwater contact basket weaving.
Yeah,
it just doesn't resonate. But you could play around in there and see. So, but otherwise, man, this is amazing. You're doing a hell of a job. I also think a lot more posts directly about Hawkeye Ordnance would be very effective for you.
Okay, perfect. I'll get on that.
Yes, to be totally self-serving.
Yep. Just everybody watch out for a whole slew of Hawkeye Ordnance posts coming up.
Perfect. Well, good. So, all right. Anyway, but no, I mean, you're doing a hell of. I mean, for just a couple of years in the game, I hadn't seen your numbers in a while. They look fantastic. I mean, the stuff we're talking about is cleanup, not It's rehab, not hab, right?
Yep, exactly. It's not building from the ground up. It's just kind of redirecting it and getting back into it more.
Yeah. So we covered a lot there, and I guess the question is like, what do you want to get out of this? I mean, what do you want to do with this?
I haven't quite figured that out yet, but I absolutely love this community, and I've loved becoming part of the shooting community.
Yeah.
And I've just slowly been immersing myself into it.
Totally.
And now I go on the range and I can't, even walk around Forest Lake Sportsman's Club anymore without somebody being like, "Oh, hey, how's it going, man?" Oh,
isn't that cool?
How you been? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I showed up today to a USPSA match. I haven't shot one in months, and everybody's like, "Hey, how's it been?"
That's amazing. Yeah, and so the thing that you might want to look at is in the world of influence, the one thing, like if there's something about that you want to help, you want to have an impact on, that becomes the sort of overriding mission for your social, you'll have an easier time deciding what is worth spending the time on and what isn't.
Yep.
So you've got some obligations, you got to cover those, right? And then there's the part that's like, you just do it because you would have done it anyway.
Yep.
But there's this other thing, like I got really clear on a podcast the other day with Angelo Fraboni and Brian Schmidt-Deal and their new company, Apex Development Group, which, by the way, we will be launching by this time, you'll have already heard the first one, at least, if not the second one, but when this podcast hits. But we're launching a new business development podcast inside of the Syndicate podcast with the three of us. Just because that thing did better than any other podcast I've ever done by like a lot. So I've already listened to that first one with them, and it was a lot of good info and conversation in there. What I got out of that though is that what I sell is accessibility. Yep. So whether it's the blue collar guns from Hawkeye Ordnance, or it's the the marketing firm that's designed to, help the small entrepreneur in the space get a leg up, or whether it's Hawkeye Ignite on Wednesday night, which is totally designed to learn how to play the game, show up, under a low stress environment, become an MD, like whatever you want. It's all about accessibility. And it hasn't really had a chance to matriculate into my actual work on my day-to-day level yet, but really I'm just, other than the fact that I've recorded a whole ton of material in the last couple of weeks, so it'll be coming out both podcast and video, because that's what I do.
Yeah.
So that's something to consider. And that's really kind of like a branding thing, is just really knowing like what your mission is. And maybe it's just as simple as getting people into the game. So what does that look like? What would you do? What kind of comments would you make? What kind of posts would you make? Or maybe it's helping people, get that first endorsement. So how would you do that? Like, what would you say to people? Be cool is a pretty good answer,
Yeah.
So
be social, be open.
That's it. It really is that simple.
It is.
Yeah. Hang out, ask a lot of questions, be curious, be humble. But
Yep.
like you get the idea, like if you had kind of a pervasive messaging that was just kind of woven in through everything, that could make a real difference for people who are coming to find your stuff.
Yep.
Cool. So what's next, Kevin? What are you up to? What's your goal for next year?
It all depends on family life, I think, first off.
Yeah.
What the wife wants to do, but hopefully I will continue the trend of getting a couple more majors in.
Yep.
And seeing different parts of the country.
Really cool.
I shot Task Force Dagger last year, and that was probably the best match I've ever shot so far. Yeah. And I was bummed to hear it wasn't happening this year. But so I decided, all right, well, I'll go the other direction, go over to Wyoming, and do something else. But I think one thing I'm going to work towards after talking to Dustin Sanchez from JP about tactical games is probably work towards that after where I was last year with my fitness and physicality.
Yeah.
I think that'll be a huge goal for me for next year. So.
Totally. Well, feel free to come and join us for some of the workouts. Just, don't wear the weighted vest and, that kind of stuff, and see, you're welcome to join us. It'd be fun.
Oh, I'll go all out. I'll go find myself a plate carrier.
Just got mine today.
Yep. You've seen how quickly I've delved into 3-gun.
Oh, totally.
If I'm going for the tactical games, I'm going all out.
Oh, dude. So here's something I was thinking about today, and I don't know if I'm going to do this full on, but I got you remember Cody from Sojourn Gear?
Yep.
Yeah. So Cody is this awesome tactical dude. He's like 8 feet tall. He would show up at all of our matches, and just like, he's just funny to watch. He's amazing. I love that dude. Anyway.
And he wouldn't use a stroller.
No.
He would use his wheelbarrow.
No, he is, he's amazing, and just the coolest guy. And, he's wearing, but he sews like tactical gear, vests and backpacks and all kinds of stuff. And it's all pretty much custom ordered. I've been using these small bags he's gave me last year or 2 years ago for everything. I love them. Anyway, long story short is I was like, dude, there's nothing in the rules that says you have to wear a rigid plate in the front or back. So I contacted him, and he's going to make me, well, I haven't heard back from him, but my request of him was to make me a flat, the same dimensions as a plate, but, sand filled and, stitched heavily through. So it's like the sand is really evenly dispersed and won't move around. Plate for the front and back. So you can get to that 15 and a nickel pounds, and have no rigidity. You're not bumping into stuff with your arms and all that stuff. And I've got a weight vest I cut up to as a prototype for this, and it's just that the sandbags are all pound each, so it's kind of like rigidy, it's kind of bumpy. But if you could flatten the whole thing out, and maybe we fill it with some lead shot and stuff too, or whatever, to make it, the right weight. But man,
find the right size, shape, and weight.
Totally.
But flexible.
Way more flexible. Yeah. And so that's what I'm headed towards right now. That's going to be my innovation, my contribution to the tactical games.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
You better patent that idea before you broadcast.
Oh, I
feel it from you.
Yeah. No, I mean, if Cody decides to do it, it's Cody's.
Yep.
100%, and then someone like Rogue Fitness or somebody, if it really does make sense and it meets the requirements of like CrossFit or whatever. I tried to find the CrossFit rule on it and I couldn't. Then go. Yeah.
Or even a company like Armageddon Gear, one of those guys that is already making bags and everything. Like, that would be an awesome idea.
Yeah.
And a nice gamer addition to the tactical games.
Totally. And then our buddies Atlas are going to be. There's a possibility of a new firearm making it at that point to that event, but for sure the Hyperion Railed Duty, which is coming out shortly, will be the pistols we're going to use for that match, which I think will be an awesome, like the ideal gun for that.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Something a little bit lighter than like my Titan, because I don't know if I want to run 3 miles with that thing on my hip.
Oh no, you don't. I did a 4K today. I run a 5K probably once, about every other week, just for my endurance. I'm not a big endurance athlete, and I threw on essentially a 5-pound setup today, and I did a 4K trail run. It was up and down hills, mind you. That was like, I thought I was going to throw up. It makes 5 pounds makes a huge difference.
Yep.
Yeah. But I definitely think that there's a lot of cool crossover games that are in our future as a culture that I'm pretty excited about. I think there's some really cool stuff happening in the like with the tactical games. I'm trying to think what else. The PRS is growing up. I think PCC will eventually find its home somewhere in the right place. And then you've got these, we've got a match for everybody now. If you're like high speed bay, go for it. If you like 5-minute stages across heavy terrain, go down to Texas and see Jeremy, go for it. Sport's growing. It's cool. I think we're probably as big as we're going to be for a while, but at the same time, it's getting way more interesting.
Yeah. I've already heard a lot of people talking about the NRL 22 now too. And we've only had 2 or 3 matches locally, and I've never even seen one yet, but everybody's talking about how fun that was.
Yeah.
It's like, well, and they're getting a lot of youth and stuff into the game too. So
totally.
It's good for everybody.
Well, I mean, you could go and get a Ruger Precision 22 and a Vortex, I think the Diamondback Tactical, and and you're in it for like $450, and you could be competitive with that.
Yeah, I've heard they do great in that game.
Yeah, so that's in my list of things to do. It's not very high.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of in the same boat.
I'd
like to do it,
yeah,
but I also like to shoot a lot of 3-gun.
So for those of you that really want to get into that game on the cheap, what you should be doing is following my Instagram, which is Hawkeye Syndicate, because about 6 months after I buy a gun and an optic and do a whole bunch of videos on it and shoot 1 or 2 matches, I will be so bored. It will be available at a good price at Arms and Arms.
Yep. And then it'll be in your story saying, look at the deals going on this weekend at Harrington.
Exactly. And then I'll just switch my account from personal to Harrington and sell it.
I may have seen 1 or 2 of those come through in the last year.
Oh my God. It's terrible. Well, I get these wild hairs and I go after it. I mean, tactical games is probably no exception, but hopefully that'll stick around. I could see myself doing 2 of those a year, just to stay in top condition. So,
yep.
Well, that's what happens. That's what happens when you play the gear, a mutually assured destruction game. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I know a couple of friends that have benefited from me doing that already too.
Oh, totally. I was that guy that showed up on Wednesday night, Canyon. Dustin's friend. I looked down at his rig and he was wearing all of my 2 years ago Weber Tactical stuff, which I sold to Matt Barnhart, who then loaned it to Canyon.
Yep. I see my first 2011 on the range all the time.
Do you? That's funny as hell.
My buddy Blaine's shooting that.
Oh, sure.
So I see it all the time.
Really funny. So. All right, brother. Well, that's an hour, man. That was awesome. It's good to catch up with you. Wow. And I gotta be just straight with you. I really enjoy having you as a partner at Ignite and just as a friend in the dirt. And I really wish all the best to you, brother.
Yeah, man. I appreciate it. And I hope to, maybe in the future we'll record some more of these podcasts and we'll get more matches going and just have a blast.
In the meantime, metal.
There you go.